Planning Commission for May 23, 2012. Would you please call the roll?
Here.
Here. Here. Here.
Here. Thank you. First item of business, approval of the meeting agenda. You have that before you. Do any changes or additions or deletions to the agenda? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda. Does all in favor say aye? Aye. Approval of the consent agenda. We have two sets of minutes to review. First are the minutes of the regular meeting of April 25th, and then the minutes of the regular meeting of May 9th. Let's take the April 25 meeting first. Are there any corrections, additions, changes to be made to the minutes as prepared?
Chair Graber.
Commissioner Fisher?
On the minutes from April 25th, I am noted absent from the roll, but yet I also voted aye on the motion on page 10. So I was trying to figure out which is correct, and I didn't see any brilliant text from something I might have said from the meeting, so I'm just going to go with that I wasn't there, which I'm pretty sure I wasn't. So I think we just got to change the aye vote. Thanks.
So you weren't there. Okay. Any other changes? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes as amended. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 The minutes are approved. And now the minutes of the May 5th, or excuse me, May 9th meeting. Changes, additions, deletions? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes of May 9.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So the minutes for April 25 and the minutes and May 9th are approved. The next item on the agenda is community comment. During community comment, members of the public are free to come forward and address the commission on any particular topic that has not been considered in the last 30 days or which is not on the agenda for this evening. I would ask, does anyone in the audience wish to come forward and discuss any particular issue? Seeing none, I'll ask that we close the community comment period. The next item on the agenda, reports and recommendations. The first item, a lot division, which is a lot line shift of 6244 and 6240 Brookview Avenue. Carrie?
Thank you, Chair Grable, members of the Commission. Before you is a lot division, 6240 and 6244 Brookview Avenue. By zoning ordinance, anytime someone wants to shift a lot line in between two properties, those applications come before not only the Planning Commission but the City Council as well. It's essentially a review to make sure that the resulting lots meet code. The two properties that we're looking at are both owned by the applicant. One they live in and the other is a rental property next door. This property is located just south of Valley View Road, north of the crosstown on Brookview. What you're seeing here on the graphic are duplexes located along Valley View Road and then the commercial area at Valley View and Wooddale. Subject properties are located right here. You might note that there's a large wetland to the west of these properties. Those wetlands are not included in the lot area calculations when determining the minimum lot size. This is a look at the house that's now, it was under construction as this picture was taken. It's now finished. This is where the applicant resides and the property to the north. This is a look at how the lots exist today. A little bit deceiving in that this is that wetland area that we saw on the aerial. So essentially the buildable portion of that property is up front. What the applicant's proposing to do is just simply shift the lot line in between these two lots. It would be 15 feet to the north for the purpose of they'd like to build a third stall to their existing two-stall garage. So this is a look at the existing lots after the split. The lot to the south is 86 feet wide. The lot to the north is 100 feet wide. Essentially, that's just reversed with this request. The result would be an 85-foot lot to the north and 101 feet for the lot to the south. So all of the median lot width, lot area, lot depth requirements are met with this request. So with that, staff would recommend approval of the lot division as proposed. I can turn it over to the Planning Commission for any questions.
Questions of staff? Commissioner Platter?
What's the side yard setback then at that point for that side?
The property on the north, or the
south and what? Or actually either one of them, or where?
Yeah, to the north with an 85-foot lot, it's that sliding scale. I couldn't give you an exact number, but it's somewhere in between 5 and 10 feet.
Okay.
With the plans that are, I suppose, underway for the south lot, will that addition need any variances? Do you have any idea?
I haven't seen a specific building plan, but I wouldn't imagine that they would need a variance request. They'd need to maintain a 10-foot setback on a 100-foot wide lot.
And it appears that the house on the north lot, at least at the front, what would that be? The northeast corner is probably non-conforming. It looks like it's 4.7 feet from the lot line.
Correct.
Okay. Any other comments or questions of staff? And you mentioned that our standard of review is just, do these two lots as reconfigured meet the minimum lot requirements for the city?
That's right.
And they do?
They do.
Very good. Does the proponent have anything he wishes to say? Is the proponent wish to address the commission? Please come to one of the sides.
Oh, sorry. Hi, my name's Karen Treeweiler. I'm the owner, or co-owner, I guess, of 6244 Brookview Avenue. And I would just want the commissioner, all of you to know that my husband and I are going to be long-term residents of Edina. We are pregnant with twins. so really, we see ourselves as long-term residents of the area. I work for Target headquarters, and my husband is a physician at Fairview ERs. And just wanted to let you know that we're really excited about our upcoming family, and just hope to have that third car garage as we expand our growing family. So yeah, I think that's probably all we have to say. So thank you for your review and consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Treeweiler. Anyone else wish to address this issue? Okay, we'll bring the discussion here to the commission. Any comments of the commission? Excuse me, Carrie.
I just wanted to make a correction.
Sure.
When I was referring to the side yard setback. For an attached garage, the setback requirement is 5 feet,
5
as long
feet.
as there's no living space above.
Thank you. And that would be the side that is affected by the change.
Right, where the addition would go, correct.
Okay. Any discussion by the commission? Commissioner Carpenter?
Thanks, Chair. as I look at this, it basically, and it's consistent with what Carrie said as well, we're really just flipping the two properties, and the status quo is arguably already, or remains the same. So I would suggest that, at least from my perspective, there's nothing wrong with this and a lot of good things coming out of it. So I would recommend that we approve it.
Any other comments by the commission? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that we approve this lot division. Are there any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion and lot division passes. Next item, sketch plan review for Southdale Apartments at the southeast corner of Southdale. Carrie?
Thank you, Chair. Members of the Commission. This is a proposal, a sketch plan review for the Planning Commission to build some apartments at the southeast corner of the Southdale site. That would be across the street from the West End to the south and the Key Cadillac to the east. This is a look at how the property exists today. It's a large parking field, so it would be everything just south of the ring road, essentially. In this location here, you can see the shadow of the West End. Here is 69th Street and York Avenue on the south. A couple of existing shots of the parking lot today. The property is zoned Planned Commercial District 3, PCD 3, which the applicant's proposing housing here, multifamily housing, and that would be a conditionally permitted use under the existing zoning. So it would be a conditionally permitted use under today's zoning. The applicant is considering a planned unit development for this site, so it would be potentially a rezoning if the standard zoning is not chosen. This is in an area of potential change in the comprehensive plan, so if we do a rezoning, I didn't indicate this in the staff report, that the City Council would have to find that a small area plan is not necessary with the rezoning on the site. So I might ask that the Planning Commission provide some feedback on that as well. But again, the use that they're proposing is consistent with the zoning that's out there today. This is a look at the site plan as was originally proposed. They've made some minor changes, and I'll go through that in a second. They're proposing a 10-story apartment building that would be located here along York Avenue, a 6-story building along 69th Street here, and then a 3-story building that would face Southdale. In all, there would be 232 units within these three buildings. Based on some conversations that we've had with the applicant, they've made a couple of minor changes. The sidewalk that you see here along York and 69th, they've brought that away from the street to provide some green space, separation between the pedestrian area and the street. And they've also introduced podium height along this building here that faces York. They haven't done any building renderings, but they are suggesting the potential for some podium height with that building here. This was a revised site plan that they've submitted. You can kind of see the stepped back approach that they would consider. And again, here is the sidewalk with that green space. They're suggesting a right-in, right-out to access the site. There would be a parking field along 69th here and an access off of the ring road as it exists today. This is a look at kind of generally give you an idea of the height of the structures. Again, the 10-story building, the 6-story building here. And the applicant will go through some of these with their presentation as well. You can see the west and to the south. Street level along York Avenue. Essentially from Southdale, this would be CVS back here. As we do with all PUDs, we've provided a table in the staff report that compares the existing zoning and how it would stack up. And as you note, there are just a couple of variances here that would be required. The Southdale itself is somewhat slightly short parked today based on the square footage and the uses that are out there. And with the removal of these parking spaces, again, they would be short parked. As part of the formal application, a parking study would be needed and a traffic study as well to determine those impacts and just to make sure that Southdale can still function. It could be a combination of a proof of parking. There's plenty of room here to add a ramp or whatever might be necessary to come into conformance with the Southdale site. The other variance is the 10-story building would require a setback variance. The setback is based on the height of the building, and it's 110 feet tall, so they would need a 110-foot setback, and they're proposing a setback in the 68 to 70-foot range, so that would be the other variance. Just quickly, some of the issues that staff saw here. Is the purpose and intent of the PUD met here, or is the traditional zoning the appropriate way to go here, being that it is a permitted use? They have addressed the podium height somewhat along York. Other issue that we would raise is potential pedestrian conflict. They're proposing off of the sidewalk here. This would be a pedestrian entrance into the main lobby area. This would be a shared pedestrian and vehicle traffic area. So little concern over that conflict there as well. The city engineer has indicated that there is a potential for a sewer capacity issue, so we'd need to study that a little bit in a little bit more detail just to make sure that there is the capacity for the added density in the district. So with that, I'll close. The applicant is here with a presentation. I can stand for questions, however you'd like.
Thank you, Planner Teague. Are there questions of staff? Commissioner Carpenter?
Gary, can you just explain a little bit more what you're referring to, the conflict between the parking area and the entrance to this? I'm not saying this, not articulating it correctly, but I didn't pick up on that when I was looking at it originally. But are you saying that there are vehicles that can enter into that turnaround area?
Correct. This graphic shows it somewhat, although we're not seeing the pedestrian connection off of the sidewalk here. But as you see, there's a kind of a pickup, drop-off, circular drive located here. So this would be shared by the pedestrians that come in. So as the plans are developed, I think we'd want to see some improvements there. How can we separate that conflict or make that function?
Okay, thanks.
Other questions? Commissioner Staunton?
So is the proposal to subdivide this portion of the lot away and create a separate parcel?
That's an excellent question. They haven't indicated whether it would be a lot division where they're just shifting lots around or a new plat to create the lot. So that's something they'll have to.
So who is the applicant?
I'm drawing a blank on the name of the architecture firm. Sorry. On behalf of Simon, TKD Architects.
So it's the owner of Southdale that's the applicant.
Correct.
I understand there's people here on behalf of them. And maybe you can address that when you get up. Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Thank you. Would the applicant care to come forward and make a few remarks?
My name is Ryan Dunley with Stewart Companies, 1000 West 80th, Bloomington. I want to thank the Commissioner, Chair, and the Commissioners this evening for hearing about a project that we're all excited about. On behalf of Stuart Nolan and Stewart Companies and our partners in this project, Simon Property Group, Inc., we'd like to thank you for your time this evening. Give a little background on who we are as Stewart Companies. We are developers, owners, and operators of multifamily residential in the upper Midwest. We're headquartered in Bloomington, and we've been in business for over 42 years. Mr. Nolan has been involved in the development of over 10,000 units throughout his career, and we currently own and operate over 5,000 units in the upper Midwest, both apartment and townhome rentals. Whether we develop or we acquire new property, we're in it for the long haul. As you can tell, Mr. Nolan still owns his first property that he developed in 1970, so we're long term. And we're also as co-owners of a project just down the street from Southdale called York Plaza. It's a 261-unit project, and we're very familiar with the apartment market in Edina, and we feel that this location of Southdale deserves a high-end Class A rental. I can hand it over to David, who will explain a little more about the project from BKV, and he'll be able to answer any more questions you have. Thank you.
Presentation here. Thank you very much. Some of this you have seen already from staff presentation, so I may skip through some of it.
Would you give us your name for the
Yes,
record, please?
Thank you. My name is David Motzenbecker with BKV Group. I'm the Director of Landscape Architecture, and with me is partner Mike Krish from BKV Group as well. He'll be talking to the architecture. I'll be talking to some of the site questions. Some of this context Carrie has already run through, so I'll kind of get over that a little quickly. This is the updated plan that he was referring to. We, after conversations, pulled the sidewalk in a little closer away from York, giving that green buffer. And again, this is still very schematic, so we're open to suggestions on how to improve this even more. Here's a little bit more easier to read, this parking court. And I do have some precedent examples that I'll scroll down to show you. The idea is that it is a shared space, using some bollards, using some delineation in the pavement, perhaps as pedestrians move into the space, they might be directed to skirt around the edge to enter through different paving treatments, some other things like that. And I'll show you an example of that. One of the main things that we're focusing on this site is today there's some great vegetation, some great trees on that site, and some pretty substantial earth berming that help kind of screen the parking lot from the surrounding. So we kind of built off of that and wanted to create this jewel of a building within almost like a park-like setting by taking the scale of the building down a little bit by adding some more trees, adding some of these berm elements back, but in a more thoughtful and focused manner to draw eyes into the building and to focus you on different views, but also to screen elements that we don't want you to see as well, such as parking spaces, parking lots. So you'll see up here in the corner, this is some guest parking. This whole space right here are some berming with plantings and trees on top of them that screen this from the traffic coming south on York Avenue. They curve in right here to reveal the building as one drives by, to kind of give you a glimpse and an opening. Then they build back up again here to give focus to the pedestrian entry, build back up again here to screen all of this guest parking that's close to the main entry, as well as over here. So these are all kind of screen berms, and I'll show you some three-dimensional views in a moment on how that would look. We've updated those as well. Again, all along the back, screening from the parking lot here and the ring road, not as many berms, but a very thick layer of vegetation and planting to screen the townhomes here. One of the unique pieces about this is that due to the design of the building, which Mike will discuss a little later, this whole center portion is not over a parking garage. So we can plant some pretty big trees in there. We can do some great things with the pool and really make a nice central court for this building without worrying about planting over structure or the worries that come with that. Here are some of the aerials I was mentioning with the added berms back in. I can scroll through those. Here you can see the revised entry plaza pulling in from the corner of York and 69th. So we fly around. And here is a better view at pedestrian level. So looking across the intersection, these are the berms that we were mentioning. The planting still hasn't been determined, so they could be evergreens, they could be deciduous trees. We're open to recommendation there from thoughts. And here's the berm up on the north side pulling you in. So I'll scroll through some of these so you can see how those hide the vehicle spaces. Here's looking south on York towards the west end, some of the berms there with the paths cut through for the pedestrian circulation. This is almost echoing what is currently in place today. And then this is looking east along 69th. This is that other large berm that's screening some of that guest parking. And I'll turn it over to my colleague to discuss some of the architecture, and I can scroll back through his direction and talk.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. My name is Mike Krish with BKV Group. I'll try to keep it short in terms of what I wanted to talk about, but maybe go to one of the images. The nature of the design that you're seeing in front of you, it's very early on. This is really just a massing model to understand the scale of the development and how the components and pieces work together. It has not been designed. We're in the early process of looking through precedents and trying to find for ourselves, how to define this. Again, as Ryan mentioned, a Class A property for the area around Southdale. The context, again, we're sitting in the midst of very large components, such as the parking lots of Southdale, the mall itself, the Weston development on the south to the south of us are much larger building components, and so that kind of drove us to understanding how we develop this site. We could have had all one height building throughout, but that didn't seem appropriate in the context of which this sits. And so being able to do greater density, higher development that could stand on its own next to Weston as well as to the larger parking lots, and then be able to scale this down and step down were important features that we thought needed to happen. It also opens up the site to greater landscaping and open space, which I think we think creates a positive contribution in terms of more open space, green space, pedestrian connectivity throughout the site and to the areas beyond. So those were some of the components we were looking at. So the building itself, it is broken up into 3 buildings, but they're of a larger scale, a grand gesture. The 3-story townhomes facing the parking lot is this grand gesture of building element that addresses the parking lot, and then we have transition spaces between with the ring roads and the pedestrian levels and the berms. But that, along with the 10-story building and the 6-story building working together with the grid of the 2 main street fairs, but more playful through the use of the berms and being able to set this building into that bermed landscaping, we thought made this a very intriguing component of the site, and integrating it with landscaping was very important. I think the only other thing, there's some precedent images regarding the architecture, and again, hopefully you've seen these, but again, there's a variety of project types here. Again, we're looking at what the components and the materials are, those have a strong impact on the design of it. We haven't made any decisions, but the idea of, you know, striking materials, whether it's glass or brick or metal or stone, those things will come in due time here, but there's different scales. The image up on the upper left, for instance, the idea of the townhomes that we have with the 3-story building, creating a very small-scale pedestrian character, in contrast to the larger buildings, which have a different scale and relate from a distance as well. So, and then contrasting larger areas of solid wall elements with featured balconies and glass areas. Those are things that we'll look into into the near future here. But again, we haven't quite gotten into the design. But all of these images actually speak to a couple of things as well. There are a lot of them, you know, maybe there's too many here, but a lot of them I think are memorable. They provide a brand to the product and the type of housing that we're providing, and I think they're all high quality. And I think those things create a positive contribution to this area and to the neighborhood that it's creating through the use of providing residents to this area. Providing residents provides a safer place. Having people inhabit this area, you know, 24 hours a day. So those are, again, some of the things that we're looking at. So I'll turn it back over to David.
Commissioners, earlier this week, once we received staff report, we did have an internal discussion and kind of seeing how it was broken down. We actually considered as a team that it probably would be a better way to go without the PUD. So we've kind of decided that is the way we're going to go and just ask for the variances that were outlined by staff. We think that that is a smarter way, and we'd, of course, welcome your opinions on the matter, but that is what we were thinking right now. Looking at the Greater Southdale plan, there's a lot of things in there that support this idea. Housing, you know, stated right in the plan, housing is going to be a part of the Greater Southdale area. And there was a lot in there about vertical density being a good fit for this area. In fact, there was a page in there that said this is a spot for higher buildings. I have it here, but there's no overhead, but I can pass it around if you like. I'm sure you know it by heart, but I can send it around. There are some select plan goals and action steps that I just wanted to read you for this project. Providing a greater range of housing types, densities, pedestrian environment improved in the study area, connections to surrounding neighborhoods, we're doing that. Use this redevelopment to mitigate the adverse effects of increasing traffic volumes, enhancing site gateways, improving the physical appearance of the streetscapes, and including long-term transportation improvements. So we feel that this development is contributing to all these pieces. And I'm just going to scroll up real quick to this item. This is an example, a precedent example of that turnaround court, how one example of how that could be configured. So cars would come in, drop off, turn around, go out. You'd have a definition here with bollards or paving, stripes, other things for pedestrians to keep them out of the traffic pattern, or a crosswalk kind of emblazoned in the ground plane that would lead from one building to the other. Elements like water features, some other things. So this is kind of the driving idea behind that. We can look at different suggestions that you might have for improving that. One of the things might be just to add a different color pavement so that pedestrians would skirt around the edge with some bollards there. But we're still working on that, making sure we have the right turning radius and things. So with that, I'll close. I think our colleagues may have the answer to that lot question for Commissioner Staunton. If you want to, I think we're going to split it, and it will be a separate lot, correct? Yes. So we will stand for questions. Comments?
Thank you. Just for the benefit of the public, the sketch plan review is our way of getting an advanced look or a first look at an idea, and your opportunity to get a first opinion, a first look at what the commission thinks about a particular idea. Not specific so much to this particular project or this particular configuration, but the idea of housing as you proposed on this site. What we do here tonight is not binding. It's our opinions. It's a chance for us to give you our thoughts on what we think about the project. And if 8 people on the commission thought it was the worst idea since Attila the Hun, you might not want to go forward with it. If 8 people thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread, you might want to go forward with it. So that's kind of what we're here for. No particular commitments, but we are interested in what you're in what you're doing, and we thank you for bringing this to us. If I might, I have some questions I'd like to ask, and I'd just soon get them out of the way right now. And the first question has to do with height. You proposed a 110-story building, excuse me, beg your pardon, 110 feet tall building. How tall is the Westin, do you know? 15, just 160, 170 feet? Okay. Looking at the absolute elevation of the roof of the tall building, I know the parking lot slopes upwards towards Southdale. If you went to the top of Southdale, at that end of Southdale, do you have any idea how those two would compare in terms of absolute height?
Not at this time.
Okay.
We can find out, though.
We
All right.
can do that.
That might be something interesting to think
Okay.
about. These are, how many units of rental are there to be in here?
232 units.
Okay. That whole area going south on York, and if you get far enough south, then going west beyond France, and actually going north on York and Xerxes, there's a lot of apartments, multifamily buildings, and I think they're mostly rental in that whole area. What is your view of the rental market? What is the vacancy rate in Edina? What's your judgment that you think this is an attractive opportunity for the city and for the investors?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I'm Stuart Nolan. We know the market well. We bought York Plaza in 1997 out of foreclosure from Prudential. If you're familiar with York Plaza, it's 260 apartments and 260 condominiums, both linked by a central community building. We've been running the community building and our apartments since that time. We've improved it immensely, many ways. I'm not here to talk about that in the 14 years. But we know the rental market. It's extremely strong in Edina and in the Southdale area. With regard to your comment about residential buildings on York Avenue, most of them are owner-occupied buildings. There are a lot more co-ops and condominium buildings than there is rental housing. Having been in this community with rental housing for 14 years, we've found that there's a need for a much higher level rental housing than what exists. And we're tentatively planning this project to be called the Residences at Southdale. And it's going to be extremely high quality. I dare say it'll be on a quality of newer luxury condominiums in the area. We're talking about 9 and 10 foot ceilings. We're talking about granite countertops. We're talking about large units, high quality finishes, amenities. We're convinced, and I think our partner Simon is too, or they wouldn't have gone in this with us, that there is a market and there's a need for high quality rental residential in the Edina area. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you. And then my final point, and then I don't mean to hog the podium here. You decided, you seem to have reached a decision that you're going to go with the regular zoning route and seek variances as opposed to the PUD. I'd think about that. For a while, we've had, it's difficult, not impossible, but it's difficult to justify variances sometimes. What's the reason you need a variance? And just because you want to build a building doesn't seem to be a sufficient reason to ask for a variance. So I just caution you on that and ask you to take that under careful advisement. So other comments, Commissioner Scherer.
Following up on the chairman's question just now, and maybe Planner Teague could clarify, if we were to see this applicant shift to just asking for variances, this is a PCD 3 currently, and if I'm reading the staff's chart correctly, I see one variance that would directly apply to the applicant, and that is that the setback from, is it York? Yes, would be 68 feet instead of the normally required 115 feet. And then the other, which I don't know, how do we apply a variance that would apply to Southdale as opposed to this applicant? In the space allotted, this applicant would have more than enough parking stalls under the code, but that would then leave Southdale short 535 stalls, if my math is correct.
That's correct. It's the same property owner, and by definition of our tract, we're looking at this site in its entirety. So we can't ignore the fact that we're taking parking stalls away from Southdale. So that has to be addressed as part of this overall tract.
But those would be the only two variances if it proceeded in that vein?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Chair Grable, Commissioner Scherer, just as an aside to that, there has been conversations with Simon, and I think they're going to be having a conversation with Mr. Teague about that variance. So it may remain within this project. They may bring it as their own particular variance. So that conversation will be ongoing.
The problem, as I see it, for them in the remaining property, it wouldn't necessarily be for you if you were allowed to proceed, is that proof of parking becomes really interesting in this scenario because they've already developed every available, at least on flat ground, parking area. So proof of parking would involve considerable expense to build a ramp or something else. So it's just not a simple little solution.
Sure.
Other comments, questions? Commissioner Potts?
Are you proposing a project that is entirely residential, or might this be mixed use?
Right now, it's entirely residential.
So at grade, you're proposing residential?
Correct. Yeah, some of
units.
at the podium level, those would be some of the bigger amenity spaces for the building, community rooms, workout spaces, bigger things that have some light and some activity and some energy at the street level.
Okay, and are the images you showed us are they're quite different in this early stage from the sort of massing images you proposed three-dimensionally. Are any of these Stewart Company properties, or are they other?
No, they were just exciting images that we like to use as a precedent.
It's early in the process.
Yes.
I realize. I guess the only other question or point I wanted to make, the pedestrian access point. I think that that corner of York and 69th certainly needs a hard look, but I want to encourage you to pursue that because I like the idea. Certainly I think for people who are going to live here, if they need to walk to CVS or even the library, they ought to be able to do that. In addition to contemplating walking if they want to catch a bus at the mall. So maybe think about easy pedestrian access back across the parking lots toward that Southdale transit area. I think there's some good opportunity there, although it'll take some work, certainly with traffic studies, both vehicular and pedestrian. So wanted to comment on that, and I think that's all I've got right now. Thank you.
Chair Grable, Commissioner Potts, just to follow up on that, one of the things that, a couple of the things we're looking at that do address some of those things, Simon has indicated up at this corner that they're interested in taking this connection across and bringing it all the way up to the mall, as well as some of the things we're looking at discussing as a possible turn in here from York, being there's a light here already. Those are some things that we want to, we're going to have to talk to the county as well as the city about. And then one of the things we wanted some feedback on was a possible another pedestrian crosswalk here to get across and into the Galleria space and then down into the Target space. Just a proposal. Right now we understand there's already crosswalks here and lights here, but just something that we want to throw out and get some thoughts on.
Mr. Platter?
Yeah, those are my primary comments, kind of echoing what he brought up was about the pedestrian connections. I was wondering how you're going to get back to the mall is one big thing. You know, a lot of people, I'm assuming, and you'd want them over there as well. And also down off across 69th Street, how are you getting across at that spot? Because you're going over the Galleria, Target kind of right down the road there, and really to think about how pedestrians really get around here. I mean, that's, I think, a lot of our ultimate goal is how people are living here, how do they just walk to areas and not have to get on a car and you know, drive a block and then drive another block, but how are they going to get to all these spots? And you've got a good start here. I would just like to see how you're getting to all the tertiary areas where the shopping areas where people are going to go, you know, expand upon that and how they're going to, how you plan either to influence that or work through those issues. And some of it looks like under your control, some of it looks like maybe not so much, but really try and bring things together, especially from a pedestrian standpoint here. And then the other comment I have, and maybe you're looking at it more, but just kind of your common space and your entrance court. Part of my thought into there is I know you're probably preliminary, but are you looking at more landscaping? You're looking at more landscaping elements within that versus making a big hard court or all non-permeable surfaces in all those areas. It just seems like, to me, a little more welcoming would be some kind of softening that up through those areas. And again, maybe you're looking at it, but even the common space within, it looks like you just kind of have pavered it over, and maybe that's not the intent, but that's what it looks like to me.
Okay. Thank you.
So,
Commissioner Forrest?
I also had a couple of, well, questions or areas that I'm curious about. First of all, I echo what my fellow commissioners said about the need for pedestrian circulation to be pretty clear and safe and inviting. I'm also wondering, I would like to see when this comes back, bike parking designated for visitors and for residents on the lower level, perhaps some walk-up type things in the parking area. I'm wondering, you know, you talk about these proposed renters, that it's going to be the high-end luxury market. Is there an age designation you're talking about? Are you imagining renters that don't have children? Because it looks like most of the units are 1,000 square feet or less. And along with that, it would be nice to see some type of children's recreational area on the property for the residents and for the guests, visitors. Need not be a big, colorful play structure, but it would be nice to have an attractive but special place for children to use when they're there. And yeah, I guess my question is, a lot of it has to do with, as far as question part, is the unit size and the proposed target audience that you're seeking.
Commissioner Forrest, what we're finding in these high-end residential markets, the demographics actually in settings like this could vary quite dramatically. There will be residents that are in the 20 to 30-year-old range that are looking to be in the heart of the vibrancy of the mall and the restaurants and that kind of thing that do surround this city of Edina in this area, that don't necessarily want to be downtown and want to be in a place that's active and provides a lot of amenities. It also could be empty nesters and other folks like that are a little older crowd as well that want to stay in the city, that also want to be near all of the activities that are a great part of the city, but don't want to own anymore or can't, or are wanting to look for something else for themselves. So I imagine there's going to actually be quite a wide range that rather than very targeted to just one demographic group. So unit sizes as well, thank you. They will vary anywhere from 700 square feet up to 12 or 1,300 square feet. Today's renter, what we're providing, they may seem like smaller units, but the amenities are greater. So they're getting more components for their dollar in a slightly less amount of square footage, but there's added amenities within the project itself, like fitness and club rooms and things like that are an extension of their living unit as well. In the outdoor space, with a lot of added components, we will be adding a lot more detail to this as it develops, because there's a lot of amenities that are a part of that. So those are all a part of what the renter gets as a part of living here.
I guess
hopefully that answers that.
My preference is, it seems like communities are richer when there's a variety of residents as far as age and whether or not they're children or whether they're retired, and it can be very exciting when there's a lot to play off of. But so I was concerned a little bit when I looked at the unit sizes regarding that, and I'll let you answer that and address that. The other concern was also similar to Commissioner Potts as far as on this plan, there's a lot of hardscape, and I understand there can be additions and planters and all kinds of things, but as you go forward with that, that is something that we do consider. So thank you.
Sure. You're right. I mean, there will be a variety of ages and family types, just as there is at York Plaza. When we took over York Plaza, it was well over 50% empty nesters, I'll say, and it's evolved. The rental market has changed a lot of things. The housing market's changed, as we all know, especially in the last 5 years. We have a lot of families now at York Plaza. First of all, federal law prohibits us from discriminating against families, any rentals. But we welcome the families. They have to qualify, and they have to abide by the rules just like anybody else. What we did as an example, when we took over York Plaza, we had a handball racquetball court down in the basement below the community building. That was hardly ever used. And we played around with different uses, and we finally, I think our manager suggested, hey, we're having more and more children. Let's turn it into a playroom. And we did. So we've got this ex-handball court that is now decorated with, in fact, one of our painters, who happens to be an artist from another property, came over and drew caricatures of various Disney and caricatures that kids would relate to, Dr. Seuss type things and whatever. And there's play things in there that the kids use. And so particularly on winter days or rainy days, it's used quite a bit. And there's, at York Plaza, we have a certain amount of outdoor too, and we have the advantage of being on the promenade, and kids can walk with families, can go over to the Edinburgh area and whatever. We just haven't gotten far enough along in this yet to decide what to put and where. But David, that courtyard, it's a very small scale. That is a large courtyard.
It's quite large.
I don't know what the size is.
It's probably half an acre.
Yeah. And we will have an outdoor pool, as you see there, and other activity space. It would be, I suspect, on the inside. There, nothing along the perimeter. But your point's well made. We have to, and we will have a variety of people. We'll have professionals that work in the area, and I think will be a big part of it, as will empty nesters that want to remain in Edina but don't want to live in a home anymore. And of course, there'll be everybody in between, too. So I hope that answers.
Mr. Carpenter?
Just a couple of questions as it relates to the traffic volume in that neighborhood, or in that, that intersection, and how much of a concern there is in terms of trying to moderate noise and deal with the fact that you got two fairly busy streets right there.
Chair Grigable, Commissioner Carpenter, that was also one of the key reasons to kind of bring back that idea of the berming and use some thicker plantings in strategic locations, because earth absorbs sound quite well, especially if it's bermed up, as do coniferous trees. So some of those judicial placement of those things along the road were key to helping quiet that down at the pedestrian scale. And to also, frankly, go the opposite direction. When you have that greenery and that feeling of trees close by the road, it helps slow down vehicles as well. Psychologically, they feel that they need to slow down because there's green in that place. One of the other key things that we were thinking about as regards to traffic and sustainability with this is one of the main reasons this was chosen and works so well is because of the transit incentives that are here with the Southdale Transit Hub and the 7 lines that come in and out of it that can be used by people here if they choose to live here and work downtown. There's extremely easy express routes, 3 express routes, as well as other regular routes to get them downtown. There's lots go to Eden Prairie, they go to Bloomington, Richfield, the Mall of America, along 66. So there's quite a lot of ability right from this spot to get around town. We were a little sad because taking the park and ride lot and moving it to another portion of the property, there's a bus stop right here now, which would have been nice, but we'll just have to create those great pedestrian connections for them to get to the other side.
And can you also talk again about where you were looking for pedestrian crossways?
Yes, if you follow the little hand here on the screen, this was right across 69th at this location was one spot we were considering after being out there and kind of looking. There's not another one until way farther down to the west, towards the middle of the block. Otherwise, there's one at this corner. Obviously, you can cross here, but there was just a thought to consider if people were coming out their back door and wanted to go over to the Galleria and wanted thoughts and feedback on that, because sometimes there's discretion towards mid-block crossing, sometimes there's a distaste for them, depending on how you signalize them.
I'm just wondering, I don't really know the answer to this, but if to what extent there might be a stacking issue that might make that complicated?
Yes.
Mr. Fisher?
Carrie, is it possible to bring up, there's an aerial photo in the 11 by 17 packet. Is it possible to bring, it's kind of hovering over the Weston, looking slightly north? That one. First of all, I'll just have a few comments. I appreciate the idea of you putting in your design precedents, just sort of thinking about imagery. And maybe it's just because I'm an architect and I love that process. So I appreciated getting that in a sketch plan review. My feelings about, and I'm not yet looking at this aerial photo, but your pedestrian zone mixing with the vehicular zone, I actually, what is that, a Woonerf? Is that what they call a Woonerf when you have a street for people and cars?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
it's so interesting that you are kind of playing with that concept. And now for some of the planning commissioners, I'm going to sound like, when I first started on the commission, there was always the older commissioners. They're like, I remember back in the day. But I'm going to do a back in the day moment here for a minute, because and it wasn't that many days ago, really, when this whole Weston project was being proposed. The Target was being talked about at the same time. The Promenade expansion was being talked about. 3 key projects that all really wanted to come together to create the right kind of pedestrian environment. Unfortunately, and then if you recall in the Target discussion, we were really pressing to put housing on the backside of Target. So now you have a promenade, you have housing, you have the mixture of retail in there, and it's this progression of this pedestrian movement. And at the time, I was really advocating strongly, not only for the housing behind Target, but for this Woonerf idea between the Weston and the Galleria. So the promenade would, and this is where, on this aerial photo, it's hard for me to actually, oh, look at that. So go down by the Target a little bit, if you could. Along the north side of the Target, the promenade turns into this sidewalk along the north side of Target. And then if you return right where the hand is going north, if you imagine that being more of a pedestrian and vehicular zone, not just a vehicular zone, which it's sort of become, it was a real opportunity, especially with restaurants already have outdoor seating there. You have the coffee shop with outdoor seating. So imagine pedestrians moving along there, and the car took a second spot. Now imagine a development like this, which I was thinking about back then, that this would be a great place for something like this, that now the pedestrian comes up, you land in another very pedestrian-oriented spot. And then if you look at Southdale, this is the one corner of Southdale that's already turned outward. You know, the rest of Southdale is still inward. But here, Southdale's turning out. It's saying, hey, we're here, it's a fun place. So it's my long way of saying, I don't know how much of that we can go back and fix, but this is an interesting place for a project. And what I would hope is that, now, in each of those cases before, whether it was the Galleria, the Weston, Target, the response from every development there was, you know what, that's a lot for us to think about. We really got to focus on our piece. Here, and I will just say this, I like this idea, okay? I'm in favor of this idea of housing on this corner. What I would love to see, though, especially as it sounds like Simon is a partner with you in this, that you're all kind of working on this together, that I'd like to see as a planning commissioner, what's the bigger picture, especially on this property? How do you really plan in the long term of making connections? How can this enhance what's happening on the Southdale property? So it's not, you know, this has the makings of a really great island, but it would be even greater if this island wasn't such an island. You know, so how does it enhance, and how is it enhanced by that connection? I don't know if we can ever go back and truly improve the promenade connection, because right now, and this is an issue, I believe when you talk about the pedestrian connections from the south, and I think what you're lining up with is sort of, you know, that drive area through the Galleria.
Piece was kind
it's
of what
about
we were
there,
thinking,
yeah. And when you were talking about the next connection is way down there.
It's right here.
Yeah, well, that's the promenade. It's going underneath the Galleria, which is not a pleasant way to end your promenade, right? So that was, I think, a missed opportunity. I don't know that we can go back and fix all that necessarily, but think about that in terms, if you can, to the extent that you can, thinking the bigger picture on the Southdale property and how you start tying that
Those
together.
connections, okay. Great feedback, thank you.
If I might tag on to what Commissioner Fisher was saying, because I had the same notes written down here. In my judgment, there's not a more important piece of realty in the city of Edina than Southdale. I think over the past few years, a number of changes of ownership and so forth, I think the property has deteriorated, and I think it's important to bring that piece of Edina back up to a quality location. So with respect to, and I also like this idea, with respect to your commitment to have quality residences. I think it's absolutely important and vital that these be quality residences. We don't need something schlocky on that corner in Southdale. That said, I think when you come back, if you come back, it would be important or desirable, at least from my standpoint, to have somebody from Simon accompany you so that we can hear what Simon's plans are for the balance of that block, because this can't exist by itself. You know, I don't think the Planning Commission or the city would be doing the residents a service if we let this thing go piecemeal and willy-nilly development. I'd like to know what kind of the plans are for the whole area of Southdale. So how does this fit in? How does this enhance the whole block? What's going on in that whole area? It's a vital, important piece of realty for the city of Edina, and we want to do the best job possible, as I'm sure you do as well, for the city. So apparently I've anticipated something that
I
you
just
wanted
wanted
to
to comment. We look at it as a landmark, of course, to Edina. The whole vibe that we're trying to create on the residential side, it becomes a lifestyle with all the built-in amenities around there. The benefit of our partnership, I mean, it's two entities. There's the mall and Simon Properties, and then there's our group that has formed a partnership along with Simon. The benefit is that Simon has in plans and announced a little bit that to the renovation of Southdale. They're stepping up to the plate. They see what they need to do in order to get the tenants back, or in it that draws in the people and gives us the finish that that malls are used to. It's a little tired. So with that, I just think that they're stepping up, the ability to us to partner up with them, and on the residential side makes the ease of joining these two entities, whether it's a walkway to the mall or whatever, a little easier than as if we were to buy the parcel from them and try to go back to them after. So having them involved in the project is only going to help us.
Other comments of the commission? Apparently there are none. Thank you very much for your presentation. I think from the comments you get the feeling that we like this idea and this concept. We see this as a way to enhance the city and to do some good things on what I call a very important piece of realty within the piece of real estate in the city. So thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you for your comments, commissioners.
Oh, yeah, we should. Carrie, you had mentioned the issue of small area plan. Could you talk about that a little bit and what you'd like to see from us, hear from us?
Certainly. In the comprehensive plan, there is a paragraph in there that says anytime someone proposes a rezoning in one of these areas of change, which Southdale is one of them, or potential area of change, the city council needs to make a determination as to whether a small area plan needs to be done or not. And so if they were to proceed for a PUD, we would want to make a recommendation to the council in that regard. I think what we were hearing, they sound like they don't want to go the PUD route, that they'd like to come in with the traditional PCD 3, the existing zoning.
Well, you heard what I said about that. So maybe you and they ought to have some discussions about that. I don't want them to come before us and then have problems from a variance issue with what seems to be a good opportunity here. So.
Yeah, and they do intend to go to the city council with the sketch plan as well, okay. So we'll get their feedback directly.
Okay.
Tell them the opportunities of the PUD.
bargaining opportunity, especially. How do we then go, if they decide to go that route, the more conventional route, how do we go back then to Southdale and address the parking issue? What's that process?
Oh, either way, whether they do PCD 3 or PUD, they need to address the parking issue. Simon does, right?
So then they get pulled into the whole discussion as well. Okay, thanks.
I mean, they really are, I mean, as it sounds, they're really one team here. And we keep kind of talking about Simon being a separate entity, but it sounds like they're really somewhat partnering. I think from the parking perspective, I've never seen a car parking out here, but if it ever became a problem, there's precedent on this site for how you deal with more parking, you know, just on the other side. So I'm not too concerned about that.
You're thinking the president is building ramps or elevated parking, right?
And I'd rather see it underparked than overparked myself, you know, to encourage more alternative transportation.
Okay, Commissioner Platter.
Carrie, do you know what the parking ratio is right now at Southdale, roughly? Is it like 5 or is it less than that?
Yeah, boy, I ran the square footage numbers, and it's based on the number of seats in the restaurants.
Yeah, it's probably all kinds of things.
It is. It was quite a long formula, and there's 6,200 parking spaces out there, and they need almost 6,800. So there's a lot of parking spaces, and they're required a lot.
Needs further discussion.
Okay, thank you for your comments and participation with this issue. It's very interesting. Next item, correspondence petitions. You received the council connection. We have our attendance sheet. I'm doing better. And we've also received in our packet council minutes. Chair and commission member comments. I don't have any other comments. Any other commission members have anything they wish to call to our attention? Commissioner Platter?
So just a few weeks ago, we met as part of the update for the, what were you on with the bylaws? We did an update to that, and what the city is looking at doing is creating something where any of our work groups have a more common theme across all the commissions and councils, and have something where more of a calendar, if you will, and easier to look at what the other commissions and boards are up to. So that's ongoing right now. I just want to give a little update on that with the assistant city manager. That's an ongoing effort right now. So I'm not sure when she'll be getting the next step back, but again, the broader goal is to try and bring all the commissions and boards more together, and also have the minutes available, and whatever working streams that they're working on, to have some broader connection amongst them all, to either overlap or not overlap, or understanding where we overlap and if there's anything we can get together on. So hopefully that'll come up in the next 6 months or a year.
Thank you. Other commission members have any comments? Thank you. Staff comments? Okay. With that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Is there a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.